Hello, wide world. This is Brian Courtney with the Short Bus Debate Club. And as always, I am here with Darren Jolly.
Hello.
So we had a listener send a text message recently, and he was talking about the slave revolt that we discussed. And he mentioned Haiti and their revolt. And yeah, they definitely won. And in modern times, they're really the only ones that won. I just wanted to mention a couple of things regarding that. You know, it was right after the Paris Treaty, so France had just gotten beat up by Great Britain. Right after that, the Louisiana Purchase happened. So at that point, Napoleon was saying, fuck it, I'm getting out of the Western Hemisphere. Now, what exactly that means, that's something that everybody's got to kind of decide on their own and do their own research. But a lot of shit happened, and that revolution took 13 years before they got their independence. So just imagine how much France plundered Haiti while they were fighting the slaves.
Maybe continued in some respect. But the Haiti case is cool, to be sure. It is a very unique and interesting case. So.
And I don't want to do a whole episode right now on revolution. I know we could, but Darren's got a couple of things that he wanted to mention from previous episodes, and then we will talk about what the fuck are we going to talk about? Oh yeah, the state's protection of its people and our children. And I don't have any children. I think they're little fucking diseases, but whatever.
Delicate as always, Brian. Delicate as always. So these are corrections in some instances. Some just we're kind of like always tangent city. So we start on something, we kind of go over here, we veer around. We're going to do this for a long time though, so we're going to keep wrapping back into the thoughts that we have. But when we started the episode on struggle, we were talking about suffrage. Sometimes, because we're from the States, we focus a lot on what it is that's happened here. But, I mean, suffrage from a female point of view has been brutal. I mean, I was listening to something the other day. I started thinking about the suffragettes in England at the beginning of the 20th century. So just don't want to dismiss the fact that the struggles that have been existing in the United States are obviously things that exist throughout the world as well. And also, the Assange stuff. So when I said that he was a resident of Sweden, he actually, that was kind of a tricky thing. So he's always been an Australian citizen. He had, I think, applied for residency. He was denied residency. And of course, it was an incredibly political thing. It was when all those charges were levied against him by the state of Sweden, which were eventually dropped. He did have Ecuadorian citizenship from 2018 to 2021, and as soon as their president, who essentially got elected through American money, U.S. money, through like USAID and all those democracy promotion sort of spaces, when he was elected, the court pulled Assange's his citizenship, but he still only maintains Australian citizenship. So my point about the U.S. charging him when he has no citizenship in the U.S. or any responsibilities to the U.S. as a state still kind of stands. I did find a little thing on Bernie Sanders' corporate money stuff, but I need to dig on that a little bit more. And oddly enough, it was AOC who suggested that he took corporate money, but I'll do a little bit more homework on that and we'll come back to it. For fun stuff, the Black Umbrella conspiracy stuff, that was out of it got popularized during the JFK assassination. If you're really bored and you need to look up something.
Oh, you mean not the uranium thing that we launched into that dude's leg, but
no,
it was the JFK grassy knoll Black Umbrella.
Well, anytime you're talking about conspiracy, anything that resembles it always gets affiliated with it. So when I did find something that sort of talks about all these. And they
right, but we used an umbrella to kill that guy.
I know, in '78. But like I said, so the notion of that conspiracy goes back into like when labor stuff and there's the moment in the JFK assassination where there's this guy with an umbrella and he opens the umbrella and it was this communication thing. But again, like conspiracy, I don't know. It's just one of those things that if you're curious about it, you can go into it. and have a little bit of fun with it. And this last one is just a point that I want to make, to be sure. When we were talking about the beginning of the United States and access to democracy, and this is really just a point that I want to make. A lot of people idealize the beginning of the United States, and what you're idealizing is an idea, right? The beginning of the United States was tough. Everybody did not have access to democracy. It was a very specific group of people that had it, and the vast majority of people did not. And in the episode that we were talking about this, it was during the suffer, the struggle and the suffering concepts, like
sacrifice.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. The real democracy that we have, the point that Brian continually makes is that we have these tools that are at our fingertips. The important thing to remember is that even at the beginning of this experiment that we call democracy in the United States, those tools were not, they were there as an idea, but they were not there in practice. It was through that kind of sacrifice that these things have sort of emerged. Now, the point that I always make, because I'm always critical of everything, is that we need to, and I think that we pretty much agree on that, is that we do need to continue to build on the tools so that we can continue to make the world a better place. But when people idealize things, it's bullshit.
Well, and I think everybody idealizes something. It's romantic notions, it's hoping for the best, whatever. But Joe Pesci in that movie where he was a bum in Harvard.
With honors, yeah, great film, yeah.
So he said that the power of the Constitution is that it can be changed. Yeah. And that is true. I mean, those guys were just a bunch of aristocrats. They were rich landowners. Most of our population didn't fucking know how to read, let alone write. So you can bet your ass they were not participating in voting, assembly, or anything else. They were participating in the revolution part, but that's because you always have plebes doing that kind of shit, right? But that is the power, is that it can be changed. But the only way we can change it is by using those tools that we were talking about. And I don't want to harp on that. I don't want to beat a dead horse. But we've got to do more in order to change that Constitution.
That's the only reason why I bring it up, because if you hold it to this space that existed in, whatever you think was happening in 1776, you look at some Boston Tea Party and you think that's, or, these guys sitting together in a room talking about like how to have, bicameral Congresses and three-part government and balance of power and all that stuff. If you it becomes pathological at some point in time, because you're not really understanding that you have to keep doing that in the moment that you're doing it, and you have to continue to revolutionize the way that you're going through that process, so that you're more effective, so that you can create better outcomes for everyone. So
and a lot of those changes were created. The 3/5 of man thing, no more. Black people can vote, right? Women can vote now because those changes. Again, I'm not beating a dead horse. You guys know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'll digress.
But why do we still have a document that says 3/5 man? Maybe we need to write a new constitution. Whatever. There you go. There's a can of worms.
Isn't it struck through?
Struck through?
Yeah.
What'd I say?
No, I said, isn't it struck through? Aren't there lines through the 3/5 thing?
Sometimes I think you just gotta. Maybe not. I don't know. You could do it the way that the British people do it, to where it becomes a collection of papers at some point in time. But this is when I say pathological. That's people that hang on to this document as if it was the irony of the Joe Pesci comment is that you believe something can change, but then you hold on to the thing in its present in its originally created form. There's something that's sort of devastatingly ironic about that on some level, I think. I'm not saying you do away with it. You need to know where your mistakes are, so you hold on to those spaces. But I think at some point in time, if the way that you originally did it needs to be revised so completely, maybe maybe you think
I don't
about
know.
sitting down and having a new constitutional convention or something like that. So
Maybe that's a topic for an entirely different show.
indeed. So
because I have a feeling we could talk about that for a long time.
days and days. All right.
So. Okay, so your corrections.
C'est fini. Yeah, we're done.
Okay. Right. So last episode 5, we were talking about education. And basically, education, at least K through 12, the parents are giving up some notion of control. They're saying, okay, you guys are the state. You've agreed to educate my kids. You're going to protect my kids while they're being educated. So here are my kids. Now, that's great. And even for as worthless as the education system is, I think that we do need to be educated. The problem that I've got is that since the parents have said, here are my kids, you get them between 7 and 2 or 8 and 3 or whatever it is. The state has gone beyond that and said, we're going to protect your kids all the time. And they create all of these laws. You can't smoke unless you're 18. You can't drink unless you're 21. Now, because of all of the problems with smoking, they have these fucking stupid little nicotine patches in like different flavors, cinnamon and peppermint, whatever. Melon, stupid shit, right? They're the kind of things that I just want to tell these guys, smoke or don't, or let your balls drop or something. Don't be sucking on a fucking thing that tastes like citrus.
Really focus on what's important on that one.
Yeah, so,
Camel.
But anyway, they're even, making it to where you've got to be 18 to get these stupid fucking nicotine things that you suck on.
21 now.
Oh, is it 21?
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. You got to be 21 to suck on a fucking melon flavored rag. So how, because I'm not a parent. Like I said, I think that children are just little adults, and I fucking hate most adults.
Which by extension means that he hates most children as well. They just happen to be. It's a geography thing, right? Like a
So at what point as a parent do you get some of that back, or do you just expect the state to tell your kids what they can and can't do?
And don't anybody go stupid on us right here. Like, Brian's not saying the state doesn't need to have laws, right? I mean, if
yeah, they've done a bang-up job stopping murder and rape and pedophilia.
Well,
nice job.
But you wouldn't argue that you don't. I mean, you have laws for things like that. I mean, and maybe if you weren't spending all your time fucking around with these other things, then maybe you could spend it dealing with these other things that are more central to allowing a society to feel protected and being able to reproduce itself. But it is very curious how we get so hyper-focused on these very odd spaces of, it's like these perceived moral spaces, and maybe it's because parents don't, they work so much they don't feel like they have the time that they can do these things to pay attention to their kids. But I'm going to say something incredibly controversial right now, but when my daughter was not 21, she came to me, like, in my estimation, a mature adult, and she said, I would really like to smoke marijuana. Mm-hmm. Can I smoke marijuana? And I looked at her, and she said, that I could have gone and smoked weed with any of my friends. I could have done this. She was so pragmatic about the way that she addressed this question to me when she brought it. And as a person who, like I said, Brian and I came from a different sensibility when we were younger. We were involved in different things. We both definitely partook in a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But we had to do it under the cover of black market spaces where we were getting away with it without our parents knowing about anything that we were doing. But I quit smoking weed when I was 19. I just got bored with it. My brain started falling on my ear. It just wasn't my thing, so I quit doing it. Right? I mean, that's what you're supposed to do when you grow, right? But because I'm a person who believes that there's value in experience, there's value in learning. I'm not a hypocrite, right? So when my kid came to me and asked me that question, I was like, well, she's not my biological daughter. I'm still essentially her dad, but at the same time, I said, you got to go talk to your mom, right? She went and talked to her mom. Her mom said, if you do it, Darren's in control of everything. So she came to me then, and I said, there are 3 ground rules, right? You take care of business first, every day. You take care of your homework. You take care of your responsibilities. I said, the second thing is that what you partake in, you only partake in that I give to you, because I don't trust kids. They're getting it from black market spaces. I mean, with all the stuff that's been going on over the course of the last decade with regards to fentanyl, I don't want you to get something that could hurt you, right? And
yeah, don't smoke anything laced with whatever. Yeah, bad news.
I can't remember the third thing. It'll come back to me later. But the important point is that she was smart about the way that she did it. She took care of her business, right? So I went and got it and came back home, and she's always been good about it. She's smart about it. She's thoughtful about it. She doesn't, I mean, and it seems like as parents, like why does the state need to be this intermediary? Is it money? I mean,
that's part of it for sure.
Is it because, I mean, what else? I mean, what is?
I think it's, again, just being able to control these people. It's being able to generate fines for those that don't do whatever it is they're going to do. It's bad news because they, one, are not controlling it. Kids are still smoking weed and doing drugs. They're still drinking. They're still smoking cigarettes. And I'm pretty sure they're sucking on those fucking nicotine rags. So the state hasn't really done anything. I think they may have created a couple of revenue streams through fines, and they've satiated some parent groups that are out there because, we need to outlaw this because kids are ODing, and we need to stop this because kids are hurting themselves. If I had a kid, I wouldn't care if they did bath salts or heroin or whatever, because I'm the one that's supposed to tell them not to do it, not the state. And sadly enough, if they just let everything go and, just taxed everything with a sales tax and legalized all of these drugs, they could replace those revenue streams where instead of being punitive, it's just taxation, and they don't do it. A few kids or a few people, more than a few, I know, but really, in the grand scheme of things, not that many people are overdosing on oxycodone or opiates.
I think fentanyl's been pretty bad lately, dude.
Well, but fentanyl is that manufactured shit, and I know that oxycodone is also manufactured, but it's actually manufactured to the point of the opiate part of it is man-made, as opposed to where oxycodone, they take opiates and then, spin it and make a pill. The fentanyl is manufactured from nothing. I mean, they don't use poppy for fentanyl, right? It's completely manufactured.
I'm not certain to be sure. I know it's in the family, though. I mean,
I don't think think it is.
I gotta say, I'm gonna draw the line on bath salts, though. I don't really want my kid to take bath salts, dude.
Well, but that's the point, is that you're the one that should be telling them not to take bath salts.
Well, that's why I bring up the example in the first place of why I did the things the way that I did them. Because I want my daughter to be smart, and I mean, when you talk about all these different things, like you brought up the disposable nicotine cartridges. Like, how odd is it that this has suddenly become a big thing right now? Like, nicotine, yes, is addictive, right? I'm not certain that nicotine itself, other than the fact that it's addictive, does anything really, really bad to you. I mean, what was causing people problems in relation to nicotine historically was, carcinogens and cigarettes and whatnot. And I'm not saying go. I mean, I smoked cigarettes for 30 years. I rolled cigarettes for a long, long time. But I made the choice at some point in time to quit doing that. But having said that, it's odd that the current administration would take such a heavy hand coming after this thing. And again, like, well, why? I mean, what is it about these?
Well, and that's why I was saying I think to some degree it's them creating a revenue stream. But I think a lot of it is to satiate these parental groups that are saying you need to protect my children. When the vast majority of parents, I don't think they want the state to tell their kids what to do. I mean, back, not only were they doing it with cigarettes back when we were in high school, but they were doing it with music. The state was saying, well, you shouldn't watch this movie and you shouldn't listen to this and whatever. Tipper Gore, yeah, fucking retard. It was out of control, and now they have all of these ratings on video games and music and whatever because of these parental groups. But those,
when they had those who really helped to like open up the First Amendment side of that again, who actually won, because you remember they had those the congressional hearings.
It was the dude from Twisted Sister, D. Snyder.
D. Snyder, but it wasn't just D. Snyder. So like they had Frank Zappa, but Frank Zappa's he's in his head too much. He was never John Denver, oddly enough, a person who never wrote
dirty song ever.
Darn it, I mean that's all you get out of John Denver. Whatever. I'm sorry. So these groups that.
So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid.
Synthetic opioid. Okay.
Okay. So again, I don't know if you can consider it in the same family. The DEA does. They consider it an opioid, even though it's synthetic. But my point is that you warned your kid and said, well, you don't want it to be laced with this, or, don't smoke formaldehyde weed or whatever, right? Don't smoke weed that smells like fucking diesel because it was in a truck being smuggled.
The formaldehyde thing, that's like a PCP alternative, isn't it? Something like that.
Oh, they dip joints in it. I know I smoked one of them and it wasn't very pleasant, but I did a lot of stupid shit to get high. I mean, you can just get stuff off of the shelves at the local grocery store if you want. The stuff Dramamine for travel sickness. Take an entire fucking box of that shit.
So him saying that, does anybody see any irony in that? I mean, is there a measure by? They took Marazine off the shelves, though, didn't they?
I don't know.
I don't think I haven't seen Marazine anymore for a long time.
But I know Dramamine is still there. So my point is that the state, no matter how hard they try, they can't really protect your kids. So you need to do the protection. And I guess another point is that these stupid parental groups that lobby the government to do whatever, they're trying to get rid of kratom, they're trying to get rid of, pills. And so now, like, my sister, who's in pain constantly, can't get her prescription because the government says she doesn't meet the criteria. My aunt got her prescription cut back because, again, they're trying to protect not only kids, but they're trying to protect you.
These are people with real physical ailments that are not getting a bottle of 120 10 milligram Percocets and then pounding them in 5 days. These are people that had prescriptions and then would use them as needed throughout the course of a month to maintain, because their body was shitting the bed on them, and they're just trying to survive. So sorry.
And no, but so obviously they need it, but even if they didn't need it, they should be able to get it. It is not up to someone else to tell me what I can do.
I just want to play devil's advocate a little bit, right? And because I agree with your overall fundamental point, but the opioid crisis is real. Like suicide levels in relation to people that are taking high levels of this stuff is, I mean, it's higher than it's ever been in history with regards to drug overdoses.
Okay, so we need to create a law that says
don't be sarcastic. I'm asking you a question. Like honestly, like if this is a real problem, like and it's a social ill, like how do you, I mean, there has to be, you have to negotiate it some way.
So obviously, I'm a big proponent for legalizing everything.
Yeah.
So if we did legalize everything, in my opinion, because of money created through taxes, we could create other things, more rehab centers. We could have people that had home treatment in case they were overdosing. There are lots of things that we could do to where people wouldn't die. It is also my opinion that if we did that and we made things more, what's the word I'm looking for, available to people, that maybe, just maybe, certain drugs and their usage would be cut back by certain people. I'm not saying on the overall, grand number, but, person A might decide, well, fuck it, I've been taking these for too long, I'm done. And person B might say, fuck it, I like it, I'm going to do it even if it kills me. But the point is, either of them should have that choice. I'm going to rehab because it's available to me, or I'm going to do it until it kills me. The state shouldn't be able to tell them one way or the other.
This gets real tricky though. Like, I mean, I remember there was a Michael Moore movie that came out where he went and he looked at Portugal really closely. And the Portugal system is one that's been very, people recognize it as being very effective. But I just had a good friend. I mean, of course, sorry guys, some of the shit that you're going to hear out of us is anecdotal because I work, 50 hours a week, so I don't have time to sit around and read everything. But I have a friend that just came in town a couple weeks ago from Sweden, and she lives in Colombia, but she's originally from Sweden. Her mom still lives in Sweden, so she goes up there pretty regularly. And Sweden completely liberalized their drug policy, and now there are people that are like dying on the streets. I mean, I like the spirit of what you're saying, but it's not something that just comes out of nowhere because you have to, like, if you're going to have this financial space, you have to, like, I like the idea of clean injection sites.
Well, right? There's a difference between decriminalization and legalization.
I'm sorry. That's true.
Because decriminalization just says, fuck it, go ahead and do it. And they're not making any money off of the sale and or use of said drug. Legalization means we can tax it to whatever degree.
But you still have to have like if you're gonna say you're gonna have these things in place so that you can make it better. I mean, they're not just gonna come out of nowhere. So I agree with you on the legal, and I didn't mean, yes, you're right. I was conflating two things that are very, very different things. Decriminalization is not the same thing as legalization.
Because San Francisco decriminalized it, and now there's fucking homeless people all over in the BART stations laying in their puke and whatever. Yeah, that's different.
I got that. Yeah, you don't. I acknowledge that. You don't have to repeat a point.
I really wanted to repeat.
I got that. Yeah, I noticed that.
Mostly,
but having said, but having said that, I think it'd be important at the beginning to just like spend a good amount of time figuring out how to approach those questions. Like, it's one thing to say that you can tax something, but you have to have a plan, with regards to how you're going to structure that space. And I don't think that it's going to be complete or perfect at the beginning, but there are some good examples. And I don't know exactly what exactly the Sweden situation is. I just know that when I talked to a friend about it, she said that it doesn't have the same stigma Portugal does.
There is another thing that it would fix. Okay, so maybe it wouldn't fix the ale. No, I'm not going to use that word. Maybe it wouldn't fix the current drug problems that we have. So maybe it wouldn't fix the overdoses, and maybe it wouldn't fix, people going to rehab, and maybe none of those things would be fixed. But one thing that it would do is it would decriminalize it to where our prisons aren't full of fucking people that are just doing drugs.
Not hurting anybody, right?
And
Except for themselves.
two, it would do something similar to what happened at the end of Prohibition. Now, Al Capone isn't shooting a bunch of people on Valentine's Day. All of these gangsters aren't shooting each other over turf. The cartel loses a lot of its power because now drugs are legal. So maybe they're not fucking hanging heads off of bridges as a warning to another cartel.
And people aren't dying from fentanyl overdoses because you're actually having drugs that are being produced through a space that's safe.
Right, and people aren't blowing themselves up making meth.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that it would fix. Now, one of the main arguments that people use when talking about legalization of drugs is that crime is going to go up because they're going to start breaking into houses to buy drugs, and they're going to start stealing stuff and selling it. Well, I hate to break it to you dumb fuckers. If they're going to steal it, they're already doing it.
But I would wonder whether or not during Prohibition, if they weren't making similar arguments about liquor in relation to that kind of stuff, too.
Well, they were making a lot of stupid arguments during Prohibition, too. Like, it makes white women sleep with black guys. And they made those same arguments with weed.
Yeah, if you've never looked at the Reefer Madness stuff, like you go back and you can be proud of your history on some levels, but we should just be downright fucking embarrassed about some of it. And that is one moment where the stupid shit, the propaganda that was being produced to justify the illegalization of marijuana was just so. It was beyond obnoxious. I mean, it was just out. I mean, like we're just dumb socially during that time period.
So I know you've traveled quite a bit throughout the United States and the world to some degree, but here in the United States, like when I went to St. Louis, Missouri, they had just gotten off of the number one, the top 10 list for murder rates. Chicago, when I was there, they were in number one. I went through Camden, New Jersey. They were number one for several years because of the murder rates. And when we're talking about these murder rates, we're not talking just about somebody who got in an argument and murdered somebody or caught their wife cheating or whatever. It's gangbanger stuff. It's stuff to control the drug trade in a certain area. And that would go away. I mean, who knows? They might find another reason to shoot each other, but I don't think they would be doing it on the level that they're doing it.
Yeah, of course you're right. I tell you, I'm going to get anecdotal again for a second. When we lived down at 2nd and Santa Fe, that was a tough area during that time period. It's not quite the same right now as it was back then.
No, now it's a bunch of fucking yuppies.
But I had moved out, and one of the kids that we had lived down there, we were selling, a lot of weed and maybe some other psychedelics a little bit here and there. But one night, my buddy was coming home with his lady friend and their dog, and their dog, Snoop Dogg was his name, ran inside the house barking, just going crazy, right? And so my buddy, he pulls out, because it was a tough area, he had a gun, so he pulled out his gun, and we lived in this warehouse. It was like broken up into 4 or 5 units, and the ceiling was open, so literally like you could kind of hear other people's places. I mean, it was kind of a ghetto space. It was cool, it was like one of those, artsy spaces that artsy people went to, and then eventually it got gentrified, But either way, this guy was shimmying up this line to go up through over the top. And my buddy at that time he was growing weed, and he says to the individual, he says, what are you doing? Come back down here. And he's got the gun on him, and he pulls him down. And where this story resolves is the truth. I'm not joking. So he says, what are you doing? My buddy says, what are you doing to the guy that was illegally in the unit? And he says, well, I could smell what was going on over here. And he says, none of your fucking business. He says, go back out the way you came in. And next time when I come in, I'm gonna let the dog was a chow, and she's got a bitch. No pun intended. I mean, she whooped the motherfucker's ass. He said, I'm gonna let the dog go on you, and she's gonna chew you up. So the guy went back out the way that he came in, and the next day there was a tag on the side of the house, and oddly enough, this kid ends up stopping my buddy on the side of the street. We don't know how they found out about this, but he said, we know what happened at your house last night. My buddy's like, what do you mean you know what happened at my house last night? He said, just understand that we know what happened at your house last night, and we appreciate that while you guys have been conducting business the way you've been conducting business, you haven't tried to get involved in any of ours. You're not trying to insult anybody in the neighborhood. You do your thing, we do our thing, because you know what the outcome would be if you tried to step over that boundary. And my buddy said, yeah, of course. And he said, well, we just want you to know that should anything happen again, you tell us. We don't want you to deal with it. We'll take care of the heavy work for you guys. So, and
that was nice of them.
But I mean, you're of course you're right. I mean, black markets, when it comes to things like drugs, always lend themselves to things like that. If you open it up, then people have to reinvent the way that they're gonna. You can't go sell drugs and shoot people.
No, but I mean, and then at that point, maybe secondary and tertiary markets come in, and you're doing a little bit of bookie stuff, you're doing some prostitution stuff, but then you're in a situation where now again you're dealing with the big families, you're dealing with the Italians, you're dealing with the cartels, and then you got to start worrying about human trafficking and shit like that. So I mean, there's always going to be a black market where these people can make money, but I don't think I've ever heard of somebody shooting someone else over horror territory. But maybe there has been some sort of big hooker gang fight. I don't know.
Since you brought up the fact that I've traveled, when we went to Chengdu in China, Chengdu is the Chinese sex trade capital. And because I don't know anything about what's going on there, I can't say for sure. But I have a sneaky suspicion that if you started to freelance in an area like that, you would be either invited to join or you would be removed from the marketplace altogether.
And that's possible. I mean, if that's the way you made money, you don't have any other way to do it, then maybe there would be some big thing. I don't know.
But your bigger point's right. I mean, ultimately, if you legalize drugs and you create a space where you can collect taxes and you create this sort of like other market, like legitimate marketplace in relation to it, you're not going to make all these other spaces dry up, but you're going to neutralize a really, really big one. That's for sure. And you're going to solve a ton of other problems in the meantime. And you might create some other ones too, but
well, they're problems for us, but the war on drugs ends, so hopefully the militarization of our police forces goes away. There's not as many people in prison, so hopefully we can start to re-educate the population as opposed to just keeping them in cages. It also leaves more room for the ones that are actually doing bad shit, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, even somebody that did a burglary needs to be in prison for a short amount of time, but 25 fucking years for having some pills or some heroin is fucking wrong. And this is all, again, because of lobbies and legislation. So we've got, these private prisons that are making a bunch of money off of it. We've got senators and congressmen that are making a bunch of money off of drugs being illegal. Not to mention, if they're in the right neighborhood and they are of the right mindset, cops are making lots and lots of fucking money off of it.
This is where when the original question that you asked becomes so difficult, because the political economy of prisons, the political economy of private military spaces, the political economy of like you were sort of suggesting, we will let you function in these spaces as police officers as long as you're giving us a little taste. And the sad thing about that is that maybe a person gets motivated to want to have their children protected because their daughter went to a rave and took some ecstasy and it was laced with fentanyl and they ended up dying. But what ends up happening is these places that are making just money hand over fist off of all these policies that you're talking about exploit the loss of this individual. And I feel for you, I really do. And I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to check a box. Like I can't imagine losing a child over something like this. But at the moment where you sort of like try to draw the state in to solve these problems, my God, I mean, what's the outcome? I mean, prison is a business. I mean, prisons, like you're not going to see anybody inside of the existing policy community ever acknowledge a positive disposition towards either decriminalizing or legalizing drugs because of the amounts of money that are tied to the prison system right now. I mean, this is like it's staggering. It's sad. It's pathetic. Because it's like all of the real moments where something bad happens, where somebody really did lose someone or lose something that you can never have back, is just being used as a tool to help make it. And again, markets, profit, whatever. I mean, I'm not your traditional Marxist. We'll be talking about that for 100 years. But having said that, gross, dude.
Well, and sadly, what happens, is that this parent that lost his kid to a kratom overdose, which I fucking think is so stupid. I think there were 5 of them in 8 years.
And when they pulled them, there were always ancillary. Yeah.
Right. So they lose a kid to kratom, and all of a sudden, there's these people saying pull kratom. The same thing with the oxys or Percocets that happened. But I think, and I'm a cynic for sure. I think I'm a realist more than a cynic. But one of the things that happens is that these people start seeing some fame, and they end up on television shows doing interviews, and they're doing this and that and this and that. And all of a sudden, they've got their own lobby. And so now they're making money off of their pain.
Think about that. I mean, you're using the memory of your dead child as a way of creating a market. And don't stand in front of me and give me this bullshit like you're doing it for them. It's become a job for you, And you don't get me wrong. I'm sure you still have this part of yourself that the loss is real. But you become a divided self at that point in time. There's the part of you that really did lose something, but there's the part of you that's become a part of the problem at that point in time.
And in my opinion, more of you is the problem than the pain. Or, depending on how you look at it, you're my fucking pain. which is a problem. So, and we kind of touched on it, and I think, we should do an episode on drug policy and on the prison industrial complex, but we're coming up close to that 45-minute mark. I know regarding this topic, I've said most of what I wanted to say without repeating myself, and that is that, again, if our prisons are full of people that are using drugs, and you use drugs and you want to continue using drugs and not end up in jail, then you've got to do something to make that change. And that was me beating a dead horse one more time. You gonna wrap anything up? You want to say something?
We're good.
You're just gonna go silent for?
No. We went super tangent city. I mean, we there's a lot more that we need to talk about at some point in time with regards to the role of the state, like how we see the state as an institution. Because when the state as an institution gets bogged down in these ridiculous spaces where they become subjugated to these to lobbying spaces, where the state can't. We just got to be smarter about these things. We got to think about these things a little bit more.
Hey, what's our phone number again, dude?
720-334-ROLL.
Okay, you know where to reach us. We're also on Twitter. You can find us on TikTok, and just keep in mind I do have a face for radio.
You can say that again.
we will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Later.